All right, welcome back to another episode of EventHubs Talk and Block. I am John Catalyst Green. With me, as always, is John Velociraptor Guerrero.
It has been a minute since we've done one of these together. You know, I've been talking with Steven, I've been talking with Majinton Shinhan, we chatted with JM Crofts and a whole bunch of people, but it has been a while since just you and me. And John, you want to let the people know why we are doing one today?
We are doing one because we have a bunch of high-level footage of Street Fighter 6 straight from what we believe is the Capcom Battle Balance team. And why this is a big deal is this team is basically paid to play fighting games all day long. They have the FGC dream job. and from what we've heard and what we know, these players are extremely good. They're not good, they're extremely good because they do this literally for a living.
I've been watching as much Street Fighter 6 as I can, and I'm seeing some stuff that I did not know was in the game. But more so than that, we're seeing some strategies and some meta emerge that look like this is probably going to be the way this game is played, at least at first. Could change by the time it comes out. And I got a little bit of hesitation, trepidation about this because it looks pretty damn powerful. And as deep as Street Fighter 6 is, and as many different avenues and ways to play this game there are, as I think about what I'm seeing, I'm going, that seems like there's not a lot of answers to it, at least in my immediate reaction and thoughts. And you guys, we'd love to hear if you see answers to it, because I'd like to know that there were. I'd like to think that there are, but this tech is a little bit scary in my opinion. John, you want to
break it down? No, you go ahead and break it down, brother, for the people. Yeah,
all right.
You've got some passion on this one.
What we see in this is something that everybody kind of already knew was in the game: drive rush canceling. But and let me be specific about that, because you can do that in two different ways. You can do it, one, off of a normal, not every normal, but a lot of normals you can FADC basically, and that costs 3 bars to do. But you can also do it just from the neutral if you use parry and then you double tap forward, and you'll only use 1 bar to do that. Now, that's what we're seeing people use left and right in neutral to simply begin offense. And it looks incredibly, incredibly powerful because it's hard to react to. It gives you bonus combo potential. It gives you bonus frame advantage if it's blocked. I can see you just throwing this out over and over again and it being harder the thing is, than it should be to counter.
You say throwing it out there and over again, like they could be doing. That's what they're doing throughout the entire bit of footage we see. Yeah. It's literally, this is it. And I told people from the get-go, I'm like, the BS that are in every single fighting game, like that is how these games evolve. And the moment that BS is found and the game evolves to that, like that's it, you know. And this is what this game is going to be. Like, get used to this footage and get used to seeing this and master the heck out of it, because it is a dominant way to play the game right now. That could change because, you know, maybe they up the meter requirement to like 2 bars to do this. That will change things quite a bit. But this is right now, from what we're seeing, the dominant way to play Street Fighter 6 from the developers themselves.
And it sucks in theory, in what I'm afraid of is that it sucks because it's sort of getting rid of the otherwise incredibly rich neutral game. There's so much you can do in neutral, and there's so many decisions to make and whatnot, and this feels like something that might cover all of that and just be like, well, instead of all that, just start throwing drive rush out there because it's going to work more often than not. And I don't like anything like that in a fighting game. But I was thinking about it. Let me break down really quick why I feel like this is so good. Okay, so we go into neutral, right? And when you're in neutral, you're juggling a certain amount of things that you and your opponent could do. So they could regular forward dash. They could jump in. They could try to poke you with a normal. They could use a forward moving special attack. Or they could drive rush forward, or they could drive impact. So Street Fighter 6 already throws a few extra juggling pins into that mix, which makes it fairly complicated, and hey, that's good. Here's the thing. You're not going to be ready for all of those things, and like, fair enough. But what do you do against a forward dash? If your opponent's forward dashing all the time, what's the go-to counter, John?
Jab.
Yeah, you stick out buttons, you stick out pokes for them to run into. Fair enough. I'm not so sure that's going to work against this particular move. And the reason why is because when you do it, if you pay attention, the screen freezes for like, I don't know how many frames. I want to say like 3 or 4 frames. Not a ton, but that's a lot when you want to see something and see if somebody has, well, if you're just sticking out moves to put up a wall, maybe you've stuck something out, your opponent drive rushes in and they see you're like for 4 frames in the middle of a move. They now know, what's going to happen at the end of this is they're going to be in the recovery of a move and I'm going to hit the crap out of them for it. So it also gives a few extra frames for confirmation. And that is like maybe the straw that breaks the camel's back for me.
It is a completely based in reality fear of yours, and we have seen this throughout the history of fighting games, where that popular meta emerges and just everyone uses it, and we're here we are. And something like in Street Fighter 4 was the dominant meta was in that was, if your character had an ultra that could be comboed into, you were generally high tier. And not always, because there were some exceptions with that. Maybe a character you played, I don't know. But there were a few exceptions and stuff. But when this stuff emerges, it's kind of like, well, you can dislike it and not play the game, or you can adjust to it because this is going to be your new reality for the next, my guess was Street Fighter 6 is going to last for about 7 or 8 years. I think this game is going to last a good bit longer. And I'm focusing on some other stuff here, but I just want to mention this to people, that the developers are sitting here back in neutral and holding parry, right? And we already know that parry just, build your drive gauge, does all that kind of stuff. And then they're just tapping forward the moment they see something and going from there. And it does cost them a bar, but it only cost them a bar. It's very low on the risk and very high on the reward.
I gotta wonder too, is tapping parry or having parry at the ready maybe your best answer for if someone's launching themselves forward at you in a maybe unreactable manner and hitting buttons? Now, they could do this into a grab or a command grab if they have it, right? So it's not like parry's going to beat everything there. But maybe if you're just messing around with parry as opposed to a counter poke to stop them, then maybe that parry absorbs the incoming hit and you're at a better situation than you would be otherwise. So maybe that's the little bit of an answer to it. But oh man, this is, well, and then I should say the other thing is the move that you do after a drive rush has 4 additional frames of advantage, whether it's on block or on hit. Now I'm not sure if it's on block is the same, but I know it gives you additional, it's like counter hit frame advantage on hit. So certain moves that wouldn't combo before will combo after this. It's enhanced versions of these moves on top. There's so many perks to doing it this way. It is terrifying.
And you should be afraid, John. Be very, very afraid.
Yeah.
But you should be. This is going to be very strong. And the thing about these games is that these popular tactics and meta emerges, and it's kind of, once they do, it's very often too late for the developers to go back and completely overhaul the system. This is just going to be what it is, but what they can do is they can tweak the system. It's very unlikely that they can completely, just remove this from the game and it doesn't exist or whatever, but they can make it less effective. That's pretty much your options right there. And as you did say, again, we don't know if stuff like maybe a drive impact or, another kind of parry to come up with it. We don't know if there's some really obvious
is not
counters.
the answer, by the way, because you even see that in this. You have time to do this and then see the drive impact and react to it with those extra 4 or whatever frames that it might have been for that freeze.
It's not good. Yeah,
no.
It is not good. And let me explain to people why I think this is here, because when I'm watching this footage, this reminds me of Third Strike to a T. I am seeing Third Strike all up and down. Do you feel that way? Because I know you've been playing Third Strike quite a bit.
Minus the ability to, I don't want to say this skips neutral, but this looks like a big fat skippy neutral thing. And
it does.
Feels kind of like Third Strike with a skippy neutral thing in the middle of it all.
And that is, I think, by design, because Third Strike was a really good game by a lot of people, but a lot of people also called it boring and just kind of a neutral parry whiff punish fest and all that. And this is, here's a giant wrench we're going to throw in that, and that is why I think this exists, because I think that this game was evolving in that direction. And I know there's a lot of Third Strike fans on there, but you do not want to repeat Third Strike. We already had that game. If you want that game, go play it. It's a great game still. Some people say it's one of the best games of all time. All good. We already had that game. We need something new. And that flashy, that esports, that offense, here we are. Here it is. These are Street Fighter V's developers. Let's freaking go, John. Oh, I'm so sorry, man. You look disgusted.
It takes away. Well, I'm not going to jump off and say that this for sure is manifesting or will manifest in the way that I'm afraid it will. But I've never felt this way about Street Fighter 6 until seeing this used to this degree. And the reason why, again, is because there's so many different ways of going about almost every situation in Street Fighter 6, right? And this is neutral. This is probably the most vast potential situation you can be in. And if this is the go-to answer 90% of the time, you just removed so much of the nuance of the game for this. But yes, I do think that maybe they can make it slower. Maybe they can make it cost more. I mean, fair enough. Like, yeah, have something that you have an option there to get stuff started. And yes, it'll keep the high octane momentum going on. Fair enough. But please don't do all that at the cost of the nuance of the game.
Yeah, and this might be, we talked about this a lot, this might be the vanilla version of the game, and this is just what we're playing for the first 6 months to a year, and this is just what it is, and it might, the characters who can do this one tactic and do it extremely well might be all the top tier characters in the game, and that's just kind of how these games work. I don't know how often Capcom is going to update it. I'm personally more excited about this than I am as a drawback, because there's more neutral being played in Street Fighter 6 than I think the entirety of Street Fighter 5 in this footage. I like that, and again, I get that it's kind of a neutral skipper and all that other kind of stuff, but like still, compared to Street Fighter 5 where that one hit can kind of kill you and you go into Oki and all that kind of stuff, this looks way better to me. I'm much more happy to see that, but it's the vanilla version of fighting games. I'm always of the mind that if we get a really good balanced vanilla version, that's going to be one of the more special games of all time. Because usually it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, vanilla balance doesn't exist. Prove me wrong. Was there anything else that you noticed in these matches? Yeah.
So Ryu and Ken, when that footage is up there, they're not spending a lot of their resources initially. They're really waiting for them to build up, and then they go in and they're cashing out their resources to apply pressure and such, with the exception of what we just talked about.
It's only one bar to begin with. It's not very expensive.
Yes, yeah. And this is something I do like over Street Fighter 5, where there's just not enough incentive to just, unleash all fury and anger that you can at your opponent, your research, the burnout, all this other kind of stuff. We actually saw some burnout happen in one of the matches with both players, and it's like, okay, so like this is really, there's some stuff going on here where, let's say that people are just abusing the tactic we're talking about right now. Well, maybe one of the things that emerges in the meta, we'll call it the Chris G meta here, like he did in Marvel 3, where Marvel 3 was all offense and all craziness, and Chris G said, heck with that noise, I'm going to build a defensive team that no one can get through, and become one of the most dominant players we've ever seen in the history of fighting games. Well, taking something like, the V-reversal and a few other things, and parry and stuff, and maybe people are able to play defense to such a level where that tactic is heavily mitigated and you can really get around it and not have it be such a thing. That's the stuff I know the counters are going to emerge, but I also think that one tactic we're seeing is also going to be just strong no matter what. Like, no matter what, if it's a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, it's going to be up there. It's going to be a really strong thing, but I do think more counters will organically come up, because we're the fighting game community. We always come up with new stuff. So, but a couple other things I think that are going to come up as well. Wake Up Ultra, our super, is definitely back, because the risk reward for doing that is really strong, and we see it with Ryu, where Ken is going in on him and he just does Wake Up critical art and drains 50% of his life. And that reminds me so much of Street Fighter 4, and I hated that. I hated Wake Up Ultra because it was just such a scrubby thing to input, and yeah, you could bait it out and other stuff, but it's like I either did Oki pressure or I didn't, and like you did that, and it's just such a binary, no thought behind it kind of thing. But it's definitely coming back because the game favors people doing that.
When you say that, like in what way does it favor? Because I don't disagree with you. In fact, I have a point to make to that, but I want to hear yours first when you say the game favors you doing that.
So these games are all about risk reward. You can throw a fireball, or you can do a DP, or you can do whatever option and stuff, and it's all about saying what is going to be the best advantage or the best reward for the risk that I'm putting out there. It's the difference between throwing out a jab or throwing out a heavy. You can throw out a jab and the reward for it's not that great, but you can throw out a heavy, the reward's great, but the risk is quite heavy because you are opening yourself up for whiff punishing or other stuff. And it just looks to me like the meta so far in this game will really favor doing stuff like wake up critical art. It looks really dominant.
Okay. Well, and then on top of that, if you land a critical art, you're simultaneously gaining back some of your drive gauge and draining some of theirs. So there's that. But I think supers play a particular role in this game, in that if you, especially if you are burned out, which means you don't have the ability to drive impact, and more importantly, you don't have the ability to counter an incoming drive impact with your only option is a super with invincible startup. And I don't know that we've necessarily been using them like that. people definitely do wake ups and mash supers out and stuff, but that's traditionally not the wisdom of like higher level play, so you really reserve that. I think that's going to come out more in Street Fighter 6 because it plays such a matter-of-fact role in your, and I want to say it's a defensive option, which is essentially what you're getting at here. And yeah, but specifically against something that I think we'll see a decent amount of. You got someone in the corner. If they don't have, if they're burned out, they have like jump or super is their option to stop an incoming drive impact. So I think you're going to see it a lot more in that way as well. But plus the fact that it manipulates the drive gauge and all the stuff that you said.
Yes, yeah. There's so much of this stuff that's going to emerge, and you know it. But I get your trepidation here. But you said you had another point. I'm really curious where you wanted to go.
Oh, it was basically that you're going to be using this as a counter to drive impacts when you're burned out, especially. But also just in general, like, or I don't know, maybe this is even an answer to when people are rushing in too much, and you're just going, I need something that tells the people that are going for crazy offense, balls to the walls offense, to stop. And this is my stop it button or my stop it maneuver. It might be supers. Or maybe it's just that people are going to be inclined to use them that way, even if they're not all that effective in that way. But yeah, and I even talking about that, it doesn't sound good to me, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, careful what you wish for, as they say, right? But the last thing I've got is that this is very likely Capcom's Battle Balance team. They spend all this time playing each other and other stuff. I want to see these players, one of them go out to every premier event for Street Fighter 6, and then whoever wins from the community wins the Street Fighter 6 tournament has to face the Shadaloo boss, someone from the Capcom Battle Balance team, and if they win, they get something extra, like they get an extra trophy or something like that. But like, make the Battle Balance team like the legendary bosses that we used to face, but put them in tournament, not an actual tournament, put them at the very end of the tournament. They get a special thing, and they can't win anything. They're employees, right? But if you beat them, you get a special prize. So, you know, Punk, Idom, whoever, Tokido, Daigo, you know, goes up against a Battle Balance team. We could finally see this bloodbath that we've been hearing about through the years. That these players are incredible. Let's see how the community does against them.
I think that the pressure would be on the battle people. At least I could see it playing out that way, because if Daigo comes up, actually Tokido's the first to come to mind. It's like, you need to beat Tokido, and the way you're selling this right now is that Tokido's at disadvantage, if anything, and it's like, if you lose to him, or if you lose to like some not as prominent figure, and you're wearing your full-on Akuma costume, because in my mind I imagine that these people would show up with an Akuma costume on, a la Street Fighter 2, right?
If they don't, then we're, you know, this whole idea falls apart.
Why are we even doing it? Yeah. No, I mean that could be fun. But first fix the drive rush stuff, guys.
All right, Shell, there's our rain cloud for the day. But of course, whatever counters, whatever things you guys are thinking of in the comments, please leave them below. Always love to have the discussion and stuff going back and forth. We put the stuff out here to have a discussion, to go back and forth. That's why we're called Talk and Block. So that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Once again, we'll be back with you soon, and hopefully John will still be here and on board supporting Street Fighter 6.
I will be. I will be.
Okay.
Maybe.